All right. I said I was going to finish this book. I'm almost there. Might as well continue with everyone watching. So I am in chapter Cinderella for sale. Basically, I can't even talk. I'm kind of tired. I'm kind of not tired. Like, I can't go to sleep, but my body's tired. I don't know. So anyways, Cinderella story just talks about how a woman was seduced by a very wealthy man who was basically providing her with monetary things, like flowers and expensive jewelry, etc., etc. But in the end, it was all an act, because once he had her, they got married, he showed his true colors, and he told her that she needed surgery to look better and all that, and that's not true love. But anyways, where am I at? I'm not going to go back. There's just there's some really good sensual poetry here that has to do with love and the act of love. I'm not necessarily talking about sex, because it's not always about sex. It's much more deep than some people can comprehend. I'm eating my gummies so I can stay awake. So where was I? Okay, I don't think I read this. Okay, I'm on 133. It's funny. This is not the biggest book I've read. I've literally read the last, what was it, the fifth one or the last one that was a bigger Harry Potter book? I read that book in one day. One day. Anyways, the word kama is used to describe not just sexual desire, but the desire to be united with God. And this is talking about the Kama Sutra. This is talking about the word kama, which I should have reference to that. So it's a Sanskrit word. Kama means desire. And Kama Sutra means teaching about desire. So most people think it's it's just, sex positions. It's not. Very superficial views on things that have more meaning than what they seem. By implication, this is the same kama that makes you want to be united with yourself. If you could listen to the voice of spirit at every moment, you would hear that your divine nature longs for you as you long for it. Very true. I should put on my glasses. A new intimacy with the self. What raises romantic love above lesser pleasures is that it stirs our deep erotic natures. This is yet another source of anxiety for modern people who are obsessed by sex without being willing to lose control, without being able to surrender to real passion. Passion must contain surrender in order to be authentic. But surrender to what? to the convergence of all aspects of your being that need to flow into the erotic moment. Excuse me. Physical sensuality, spiritual ecstasy, erotic flowering. When all these converge, the sexual act becomes sacred, and what is sacred contains the deepest pleasure. Thousands of years ago, Lord Shiva murmured to his consort, "While being caressed, sweet princess, enter the caress as every everlasting life." This remains the ideal of intimacy. That's cute. I think I like this term right here. I'm going to use it for poetry. Whew. My body is like overheating. It's really weird. Because intimacy is now so totally identified with the sexual act. You see, like I mentioned before, there's different forms of intimacy, but when people think intimacy, they automatically think sex. Like when I'm talking to people that I just met and I'm telling them that I'm intimate with my friends, they're like, "Oh, you have sex with them?" And it's like, no, I don't like, but I know who I am. If they want to think that intimacy is just having sex, like you do you. It really isn't, because that's not the truth. And if you look up the definition, it has different definitions. Orgasm is pursued with a devotion that would put most religious zealots to shame. The assumption for a long time was that men are the most anxious about their ability to perform. But now that non-orgasmic women have become more frank and open about their predicament, it appears that the anxiety is fully shared. So this is actually I can't even talk right now. Quite funny, because I was talking about tantra and like tantra sex with my business partner, and tantra, what it essentially is you can call it sex magic, whatever, but in reality, it's more about spiritual union through sexual energy. So when you practice tantra, it's not about the orgasm, it's about the journey and the spiritual connection. What are you doing? The spiritual connection of being together, sharing a passion, sharing your love. And then the orgasm just comes naturally. It's not like forced. Intimacy in the physical sense is usually taken to be the same as having an orgasm. See? But no matter how exciting it is, an orgasm is a sensation centered in the ego. That is true. True intimacy is shared self-expression. Write that down. I just love this book. This is great. And I apologize for me burping. I don't know. I drink a lot of water and it just makes me burp. I have no control over it. For a man to be intimate with a woman, both have to be able to release themselves from the special state that orgasm brings. What did I just mention? Even though they cannot literally share the same sensations, orgasm isn't a fixed thing. For some people, it is a release. For others, an opening. For still others, a contraction. In all cases, though, there's a shift of experience that is not only pleasurable, but in some way deeply transforming. Spiritual masters tell us that the state of enlightenment, which is totally free, ecstatic, and unbounded, is glimpsed very closely in orgasm. And this is a mention of Tantra. He doesn't directly say it, but this is basically a Tantra. So through orgasm, you can basically see God if you wanted to. It sounds outlandish, but it's possible. Although there's a certain loss when intimacy is entered hastily, our present approach to sexuality has the advantage of removing outward taboos. More than any time in the past, couples today are experiencing sexuality frankly and openly before making a commitment to proceed further in the relationship. Desire isn't so highly prized anymore, yet its spiritual potential remains intact. When two people become physically intimate, they do not necessarily become united. Physical union can coexist with separateness. Both for partners, the ego can remain involved. The ideal of stepping into shared ecstasy isn't reached by practicing some technique that raises orgasm to the height of bliss. That's kind of funny. Having sex with another person is really just one way to make an agreement. The agreement may be serious or trivial. It may betoken a deep commitment or little more than a passing encounter. I mean, this is just sexual freedom, you know. In the end, you have the right to do whatever you want to do with your body. And he's just saying that, like, you have the choice, you know. To see intimacy as an agreement is a very healthy thing, because otherwise a sexual act becomes entangled in hidden agendas. Fantasy is never more powerful or more misleading than where sex is concerned. For a woman, the hidden agenda often takes the form of believing that having sex equals love. And that is so important. A lot of women do this. I used to do it. I don't do it anymore, but it's not a healthy mindset. Am I a mind? Rank. Oh, whoa. A man's hidden agenda is more likely to equate sex with power. And that's if they're toxic. I don't think all men think that way. This was particularly true in times when the man was the pursuer, ardently offering his love, which the woman would reject or accept. The ultimate token of acceptance was for her to give in to the sexual act. In doing so, she accepted love at the same time. Many women still harbor this belief in fantasy form. Yes, this is a very deep-rooted belief. For his part, the man knew that sexual surrender meant that his pursuit had been successful. The hunter had struck his mark at the same moment that the lover was embraced. In the past, it seemed only natural for both sexes to use the aggressive image of the hunt as symbolic quest for intimacy. Yet, looking back, we can see a good deal of hidden fear and insecurity in this analogy. Why should the act of love be linked to aggression at all? Weird mindsets on love. These symbols and images were part of social code. Therefore, they required no agreement. It wasn't possible for either men or women to exempt themselves from the code. Today, the opposite is true. If a man feels himself to be a hunter-conqueror or ardent pursuer, that is his own choice. If a woman sees herself as prey, prize, or unattainable love object, that is her decision. No single code operates anymore. And by making intimacy an agreement, both parties can approach sexuality open as something they mutually want. Having sex with someone else does not imply that you have entered his belief system or will fulfill her expectations. You are not implicitly playing a part in his fantasy or expecting your version of love to match hers. So yes, if you enter a sexual one-night stand, let's just say, it doesn't really mean anything, but personally for me, I wouldn't even bother with one-night stands or anything, because that's been done. That's been over. I went crazy, when I was younger. I'm not crazy, but I explored, and I was not impressed. So at this point, I'm in it for the long haul, the winning the top prize. So, and that being said, I'm not saying that it's wrong to have one night stands. You do whatever you need to do. But there's a price to pay. What did I just say? In many ways, sexual freedom is frightening because of the loss of boundaries. And that is one thing that I have stated so many times. I will not move my boundaries for anyone. No matter how hot the person is, no matter how sexy, No matter how much I want them sexually, I will not submit. The old social code for linked love and sex. For a woman to believe that a man loved her because he desired her was unchallenged. For a man to believe that having sex secured a woman's love was just as natural. Now that this is a matter of agreement, it can also be a cause of disagreement. Love and desire are essentially separate, a matter open for discussion. It is surprising how many people enter sexual intimacy with no idea what they're agreeing to. Yes, so that's really important. Through Tantra, if you study Tantra, because this is a general love book, but Tantra goes deep into the meaning of energy exchange when you have sex, and it's really a sacred thing. Like, it's so sacred that it's, if you read it, you'll understand why my views on having one night stands and flings are so strict. I'm not prude at all. Like, I'm not. I am sexually liberated, so I choose just to be celibate. It is still common for both men and women to bring expectations to bed because these expectations are founded on images from the past. They defeated the possibility of passionate surrender. You cannot surrender to an image, but can only play it out. And the more often you play it out, the less spontaneous sex becomes. That sucks. Sex should always be spontaneous. Yeah. To rob sex of its spontaneity makes it both false and ugly. I love Deepak. Is he married? Probably. He's a smart guy. His wife is probably really smart too. Or his husband. I don't know what his sexuality is. But anyways. It is the one place where we do not have to put at risk our abilities, intellect, and social persona. Playing a part is a necessity none of us can completely escape in everyday life. I don't play any parts. Well, that depends. I have a boss, a professional side, and then I have... We all have roles as workers, family members, citizens, and so forth. Undeniably, this places strains upon many other urges that would like to gain expression, but are not permitted to do so. You cannot give away to every impulse of anger at work, much less walk out at will. I would walk out. You cannot decide to stop supporting a family on a whim, since the very fabric of society depends on bearing one's share of responsibility. Duty hems in the desire of every turn to the point that most people come to believe that suppressing their desires, holding themselves in check, is good. And let me just bring this into modern day society. So suppressing their desires, holding themselves in check is good. That whole sentence can be related to, I'm going to put Japan. If you know anything about Japanese culture, you would understand what I'm talking about. They are so sexually suppressed that I don't even know where to begin. There's just so much that's going on in Japan. Basically, they're not having sex anymore, so their population is going to die out. Not only that, they stay in their rooms all day and they play anime and they have anime wives, fictional characters. And they work themselves to death. They added a new word to the Japanese dictionary. I cannot remember it. I think it starts with a K, where basically you work yourself to death. Like, people have literally died from work, not from any dangerous work. This is just overworking, like an office job. So it is not healthy. I should look it up. I'm going to write it in the book. That is a problem. When people die from working, karoshi, I was right. So it's called karoshi. Okay, so karoshi. So karoshi is basically overwork death. It's occupational sudden mortality. The major medical causes of karoshi death are heart attack, stroke due to stress, and starvation diet. And I may know someone who's doing that. But I don't know how to handle that situation. So working yourself to death is not a good thing. There's a difference between being a hard worker and being a smart worker. Suppression is not good. However, it is only expedient. Society requires that we draw limits on the expression of desire, which makes it all the more necessary to have at least one area of life that is completely free and uninhibited. Again, Japan. So literally Monday through Friday, they work 9 to 5 jobs, even more than 40 hours, 50 hours, 60 hours. They work really hard. And then when it comes to the weekend, they go crazy. Like they go nuts. Just look up Harajuku. Intimacy is meant to be just such an area. What is it that makes sex free or inhibited, loving or merely pleasurable? Freedom and intimacy is another sub-chapter. Should I highlight it? I think I will. Women burp too, Many people deny themselves free, loving sex. Even if they are not aware of doing so, because they approach the sexual act in terms of results. They assume that any orgasm is good, and a good orgasm is better. But not only do we evaluate whether sex was successful, but we hold up physical pleasure as the primary goal. So again, as I mentioned, Tantra talks about how this is not important. That is not the goal of spiritual union. Pleasure is natural. Pleasure is a natural thing, but is also an elusive one. For some people, the pleasure of sex is that it promises release from anxiety and stress. For them, success is actually negative, being defined as escape from tension. So yeah, you're making it a negative context. Other ingredients can be mixed into the sexual act that are far more from loving. Someone who has bottled up rage inside will usually make love in a way that is overly aggressive or competitive. And I'm gonna underline that too. And this is another thing that I was discussing. What is wrong with me? Discussing with my business partner. We were talking about how I don't watch porn from any white cis male production company because it is more about aggression and domination and competition. It's not very nice. It's actually quite disgusting. And the porn that I do watch, oh yes, I watch porn. I know people are going to find that like really offensive. I don't really care. But the porn that I do watch is woman directed, created, and written. So the difference is so ridiculous, like so crazy. Like if you watch it, you will see the difference. If you're a woman, I'm just saying. I don't know if men would notice the difference. Like it's all the same thing to them. But that was a generalization. But yeah, so the difference is like so so like crazy that like I will never go back. Never. Because it doesn't like do anything for me. It's actually quite like a turn off, you know, to watch that type of content. And also, I'm not talking that this is only like the women that produce these movies. Let's just call it that. You know, there are straight men and straight women, you know, and gays, and you know, so it's everything. It's not just like a women on women action. It's everything. A fearful person will typically find it difficult to allow anything like a full release into bodily sensations. His or her, his or her holding back is a passive way to act out fear, at the same time miss any encounter with love. There are many variations on this theme. For as much as we would wish to be good lovers, we all bring our conflicts and needs to bed. Yes, most people who don't practice spiritual awakening, educate, like teaching yourself of evolution, blah, 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 they'll bring their problems into the bedroom, which never works out in the end. My ex was like that. Whatever blocks our pleasure also blocks love, because in sex, pleasure is the doorway to love. Even though sex is meant to be uninhibited and free, there are always degrees of freedom. Rarely do we believe that we deserve pleasure without limits. How then can we give love without limits or receive it? So if you don't believe that you deserve love without limits, you're never going to get it. And there's a song about that. I'm going to write it down. Because I don't know where this saying came. Okay, let me look at the saying first, and then I'll write down the song. Or maybe it's in psychology. I don't know. I just read things, and sometimes I don't remember where they're from. I just remember the content. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's interesting. I've never seen this movie. And I need to see it because Emma Watson's in it. So we accept the love we think we deserve. And it's from the movie The Perks of Being a Wallflower. And I am totally a wallflower. So I will see that movie. So let me write. I'm running out of space. I don't have much space here. Yeah, so you accept the love that you think you deserve, and that is so crazy and so true. And there are lots of people. This is just from being a woman. I'm sure other women have heard this. But you know, there will be men that be like, your standards are too high. Like you need to lower your standards. Don't lower yourself for anyone. Why should I lower myself for a man? A man should step up, meet me as an equal. Oops, I dropped my stickers. Well, what do I know? I know nothing. I know nothing. Rather than examining the results of a sexual act, we need to consider its beginnings. Intimacy starts not with a physical approach, but with a set of beliefs. The primary beliefs that defeat pleasure include the following. Let me finish eating my snakes. I'm laughing because it's true. I also don't want to believe it as being true, but I know it's true. The first line is, sex is too powerful and has to be controlled. Sin is attached to sex, making it guilty and shameful. Asking someone else to give you pleasure is greedy and selfish. Surrendering to pleasure is the same as surrendering your power. Who has these mindsets? Like, who is literally saying this? Jesus. They have issues. What all of these beliefs have in common is that they provide a reason to suppress desire. And we can go into psychology about this, and I can talk about it all day. So by suppressing your desire, who you truly are sexually, you become sick. And that's why we have a lot of sick people. I'm not talking about mentally ill. I'm talking about people that do things with children. That is a mental illness. But people are going to disagree with it, and I'm not going to get into that because I don't really want to touch that subject. I don't want to do research on that subject to prove a point, because to me it's disgusting. Somebody else can do that. And I think they have in Germany. I think there was a woman who was doing research, but I don't want to talk about it anymore. So anyways, when sex is deprived of its spiritual connection, some aspects of desire is being suppressed. So sex is a spiritual connection. The spiritual dimension of sex is its joyfulness and ecstasy. It's communication of love between two people. Just reiterating things that I have said. Mm-hmm. My dog's so cute. She's so adorable. So cute. Okay. So people may be able to deny what I'm saying because I'm a woman, but he's a man with a PhD. So what do I know? What do I know? Like, literally, what do I know? I'm not saying it as a bad thing. Like, it's like, what are those words? A double meaning, I guess. I don't know. The qualities do not require effort. They appear spontaneously when sex itself is spontaneous. And that sounds more fun, They appear, blah, blah, blah. However, a great deal of spiritual teaching has been openly anti-sexual, and that is true. Some Buddhist monks, I think most Buddhist monks, they think that women will tarnish them. It's so stupid. As long as the credo, it is better to marry than to burn, was in effect, spiritual value was assigned not to intimacy, but to chastity. Chastity is a choice. It's a personal choice. You want to not have sex ever? That's your choice. But don't force your views on somebody else. Because not only is that disrespectful, it just doesn't work. You cannot force anything on someone. All right. When spiritual teachers held up chastity as a virtue, as they have in every tradition, East and West, the intention was not to make pleasure a sin, but to elevate a higher virtue that by implication led to higher pleasure. One feels the truth in, oh God, his name is long, Krishnamurti's words, and I'm going to highlight his name. Usually Indian gurus are they're really cool. Trying to suppress sexual urges is a form of ugliness that in itself cannot be chaste. Chastity of the monk with his vows is worldliness as long as the urges are present. All walls of separateness turn life into a battlefield. Yeah, so he just reiterated, don't suppress your sexual urges. It's natural. Chastity in the sense of purity is a spiritual good, but it should not be mistaken for suppression of desire. So there's a difference. All these nuns who are married to God, like, for sure, they're pleasuring themselves. Like, they're just not open about it. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Jesus is a handsome man. All words of separateness turn life into a battlefield. Blah blah blah. Chastity amendment. When he asks why people try to repress their desires, Krishnamurti makes the following beautiful argument: resisting the sexual urge has been held up as something good to do. It is never good to resist sexual urges. Oh God, no. Let me rephrase that. It is not good to resist natural and healthy urges. Okay, that sounds way better. People take things out of context, especially if you're a woman. We're afraid of being wrong or of stepping out of line. Society, anxious to make us conform, tells us that if we don't resist our sexual urges, we will go out of control. And that's the opposite of what happens. People resist their urges and then they get out of control. Like, it's evident. Yet is, I could relate it to, what year was it? Not the 1920s. Anyways, somewhere in the past, women were getting hysteria and they were getting sick and they went to the doctors and the doctors couldn't figure out why. And then one doctor pretty much, he pleasured his patients and gave them orgasms, and then the problem was fixed. And that's very telling of, I just find it hilarious. Yet is this really true? If sex is natural, why does it have to be controlled? Mm-hmm. In fact, the whole conflict over sex, the problems of neurosis and deviancy and sexual misbehavior can be traced to resistance, not to sexual urges. Resistance is always mental. It implies a judgment against what is actually being felt. Sex becomes a problem when it gets mixed with hidden emotions, such as shame, anger, and guilt. Yes, those are very dangerous. Under those circumstances, the sexual impulse is confusing. When people ask questions like, is it all right to have sex with anyone you want to? Or is it natural to be monogamous? The implication is that an outside judgment must enter into the issue. Values are personal. Each situation that has sexual energy in it involves the whole human being. If you understand where you are in a sexual situation, meaning that your emotions of value are in your awareness with clarity, the sexual drive doesn't stand apart like a raging intruder. It is part of you. It is acceptable and love and loved. He's just so smart. I love intelligent men. I love intelligent men. Like, ooh. I would love to have a conversation with him. If you can walk through life without resistance, you will discover that life in itself is chaste. And I'm going to look up the word. I know just because I want to, okay? Just why not? It's the adjective, okay. It has a purity that includes both love and sex. There's no division between them except in society's misguided conditioning. I like that. Totally agree. Misguided conditioning. Super misguided. This argument has a very deep spiritual basis. Most of the time, our worries over sex involve thinking and talking about it. Yet sex isn't a word or thought. It isn't divided in any way from the flow of life. Its urges arise, ask for fulfillment, and disappears without leaving a trace of guilt and shame unless we add those traces by our beliefs. If sex gets tied down to the mere pursuit of pleasure, it will result in pain, for pleasure cannot be kept forever. It will lead only to meaningless repetition and frustration, to compulsive craving for sensations that can only dwindle in satisfaction. So, yeah, pleasure seeking. There's a psychology experiment where, what was it? I can't think of it. Something with cookies or something, and children. I had to look it up, but I can't remember right now. Anyways, as Krishnamurti says, the mere pursuit of pleasure throws life out the window. By life, he means the sacred being at the heart of existence, the mystery that can be known only by not resisting, by being natural. The difference between sex, love, and chastity doesn't exist. They are all one. In a world where imitating other people's ideas and values is forced on us in thousands of ways, sex is left as a means of escaping ourselves. I don't know what's going on upstairs. The cats are going crazy. Other people's ideas and values forced on us in thousands of ways, sex is left as means of escaping ourselves. Oops, I'm using a black pen. I meant to use blue. It is a form of self-forgetfulness that is many people's only real form of meditation. Such is the promise of intimacy that it can deliver us into a place where experience of the spirit is genuine and undeniable. So yes, it's like they're racing upstairs. I don't have much to say. It's not good to bring other people's beliefs, into your life, because in the end they can never understand who you are, what makes you happy. So by accepting other people's ideas, their opinions, their values, you're just not being who you are. And I absolutely refuse to diminish myself or listen to anyone's opinions or blah. Loving practice, freeing sexual blocks. I hope this is not going to trigger me, but it's okay. If you want to improve your sexual experiences, the last place to start with is practice in the bedroom. Sex is naturally spontaneous. It is both expression and release, excitement and relaxation. I got a bird. What's up? What's up, my poochie poochie? Go back to sleep. The best sex is the most open and unplanned. Therefore, planning for the unplanned is more or less a self-contradiction. There is no way to practice being spontaneous. What? What do you need from? What do you want? Do you have to go to the bathroom? I think she has to go to the bathroom. I'll be right back. Okay. Go outside. All right. So, where were we? All right. To improve your sexual experience, first get rid of your expectations. Yeah, you don't want to have any expectations for. Bless you. Anything. Sexual energy is neutral, and I have this bookmark. Isn't it cool? I love it. It's from Incense, but I kept it because I like the art. Sexual energy is neutral. You can associate it with anything, positive or negative, in your life. Whatever you expect sex to be, it will tend to become. So-called sexual problems are actually ingrained behaviors that block the free flow of sexual energy. In both men and women, the physiology of sex is very delicate and easily influenced by the mind. It is your mind that judges good and bad sex. It is your mind that intervenes to prevent orgasm or potency, leaving aside disease conditions that impose physical limitations. The dilemma is that coming to bed without expectations seems to be impossible. Ooh, my eye was twitching. Given how the mind works, when sexual experience was new, it contained a quality of surprise and innocence. Even if we cannot remember our first orgasm, most of us can remember how different orgasm was from pleasurable sensations. Its newness and intensity cause us to want more. But as you repeat any sensation, it becomes familiar, and familiarity leads to dullness. So repetitiveness leads to dullness, like you don't want to keep doing the same thing. And that's another thing that relates to the other book I showed earlier about marriage. Like you don't want repetition ever. It's just boring in general. And it's literally insanity. That's the definition of insanity. For other people, sex is associated with sensation. The question, how am I feeling, is uppermost in their minds. And for still others, security is dominant. The question, do you really love me, is in their minds while making love. As soon as sex becomes bound up in these secondary associations and needs, it is no longer free. There's nothing bad about pursuing unrelated needs in sex. Orgasm is a psychological package, not a physical reflex. But no matter how well you perform or how terrific you feel, laying orgasm into a certain groove separates it from any spiritual significance. Sex is mechanical when it is without spiritual meaning. Yeah, it's kind of sad. I can't imagine just being in that type of mindset where it's just mechanical and empty. Then what's the point of being alive? At that point, what are you living for? For many reasons, it is difficult to align our sexual and spiritual natures. The following exercise is aimed not at making sex more spiritual, but at removing obstacles that prevent spirit from entering into it. So when he says spirit, it means your soul, the love of your creator, your God, the universe, whatever you believe in. It's not like about ghosts. I mean, it could be if you believe in it. But anyways, part 1, look at the following list of statements and write agree or disagree besides each. Be honest and keep in mind that having expectations isn't something to feel bad about. This is an exercise in self-knowledge. Self-knowledge is always good. Self-knowledge is very good to have. All right, let's see what it says. Number 1. Sex is better if it lasts a long time. Really dependent on what type of sex you're having and the mood. Orgasm should be intense. I'm in the middle with all these because it really depends. What do you want? What? Huh? Go sleep. Go take a nap and we'll go walkies, okay? Hey, watch it. Don't bite me. It is not sex without orgasm. Don't agree with that. I'm pretty insistent on getting sex when I want it. No comment. The more orgasms, the better. Don't really care. The best sex I ever had wasn't with my present partner. Does he mean cheating or past? I don't know. I don't really understand that. Impotence lets my partner down. Or not having an orgasm lets my partner down. Some people feel like a personal failure when your partner doesn't orgasm. They shouldn't, though. Having sex is about communication. My partner isn't as open about new positions and techniques as I am. That's a problem. I've gone along with sexual experiments I didn't feel comfortable with just because my partner asked me to. And that's like not setting your boundaries. Like you shouldn't make your partner uncomfortable. So, ow. I am to please. I rarely let my partner down. Being a people pleaser is not a good idea. My partner disappoints me a lot more often than he or she knows. Why? Do you say why? All about communication. I wouldn't like anyone to think I get too carried away over sex. What does that mean? Getting too carried away over sex. I don't understand that. I'm too embarrassed to discuss some of these of the things that I like to do in bed. Okay. I mean, I can understand that. I can be. It depends. We have sex more or less often than I like. And that's just a communication problem. A lot of these are really easily fixed. I miss the way our sex used to be. I guess in the honeymoon phase, then people get lazy. I really don't think about sex that often. I mean, there are people who are asexual, and that's perfectly fine. So, our sex isn't so great, but the rest of our marriage makes up for that. Okay, so making excuses, it's kind of like, to be honest, if somebody isn't my equal in spiritualism, intelligence, or sexual capacity, I won't even bother to be in that relationship because it's just so important in my life. And I'm not saying that everyone thinks sex is important, but for me, it is. I have fantasies I don't share with my partner. Ooh, fantasies. You know what I mean? My mind wanders during sex. I mean, that happens. It depends. Sometimes you're thinking of some sexy blue-eyed Swede from a video. Yeah. Anyways, I'm not such a great lover. Aw, that's sad. These very common statements indicate that everyone has less than healthy sexual expectations at least some of the time. And then he just talks about if you agreed with blah, blah, blah. He tells you like what you need to improve. And then he talks about if you were triggered by any of these statements, here's how you can fix your sexual blocks in the following ways. Pick a statement that you feel strongly about, either positively or negatively. Lie down, take a deep breath, and let yourself feel what is going on when you think about the statement. So it's just a form of meditation. Meditation is good for everything. Ask to be guided to the meaning of the statement. If nothing comes to mind, ask for blocks to be removed. A helpful technique here is to pant in quick, shallow breaths. This distracts the mind from holding on its blocks. Cool, I never knew that. Should I highlight that? It's very interesting. Yeah, so what would I meditate on? I think number 13 is something that I have to work on. And that's the one I'm too embarrassed to discuss some of the things that I like to do in bed. And that's a personal problem, but it's really dependent on a partner that's like accepting and caring, because my past relationships with men have not been great. They've been toxic, narcissistic, and there was no room for equality or whatever. So I haven't had the chance to explore that. When you have some kind of answer, an image, an insight, a strong wave of feeling, ask for release. Take a deep breath and let go of whatever wants to come out, a sob, a scream, physical movement, a deep sigh, or simply a wave of fatigue. Man, have I been there. Sometimes in meditation, I cry, man. I just cry. It's good to cry, though. It feels good. Relive any memories that you want to surface. So this is like a regression. It's like regression therapies. When you feel that you are fully in touch with the emotional charge behind the statement, ask for a clearing of the charge. Breathe evenly until you relax any tension associated with statement has been released. When blocks are removed, sexual energy has no choice but to flow. Is he talking about Kundalini energy? All right. Sorry, this is really good. My hair's a little tangled. 1, sex is better if it lasts a long time. Fixed expectations from sex, comparisons with others, social norms, more important than personal experience. Oh, he's talking about the blocks with the associated with the statements. Orgasm should be intense. Comparison with past, valuing of physical sensation over emotions, self-absorption, addictive personality traits. And this is psychology and spiritualism. It's not sex without orgasm. Performance anxiety, comparison with past, valuing of physical sensation over emotions. I'm pretty insistent on getting sex when I want. Hidden anger or sadism, self-absorption, competitiveness. Yeah, that's true. I can be competitive. The more orgasms, the better. Performance fixation, wandering attention, counting instead of being present. That is so true. Counting instead of being present. Yeah, that's terrible. You want to be in the present moment. That really defeats the purpose. The best sex I've ever had wasn't with my present partner. Disappointment, anger towards partner, discouragement, inability to be present. I guess that is a cheating statement. I don't know. Impotence lets my partner down, or not having an orgasm lets my partner down. Performance anxiety, low self-worth, inhibited physical release, hidden anger. Yeah. My partner isn't as open about new positions and techniques as I am. Lack of communication, I literally mentioned that. Fixation on fantasy or sensations, judgment against partner. So you don't want to judge your partner for being open. That's just rude. I've gone along with sexual experience I didn't feel comfortable with just because my partner asked me to. Over dependence, low self-worth, lack of communication. What did I mention earlier? I have never read this book. Okay. It's not like I read the whole thing and I'm just reading it again. All right. I aim to please. I rarely let my partner down. Performance anxiety, hidden by performance success, self-absorption, competitiveness. My partner disappoints me a lot more often than he or she knows. Overdependence, low self-worth, abused background, detachment from sexual drive. And that's usually with people who have been sexually molested, raped, or abused. And I'm sorry if I'm not giving you a trigger warning. I'm probably going to swoop. I did put it's 18 plus, right? Whatever. I can always fix it later. I wouldn't like anyone to think I get too carried away over sex. Value of social norms over personal satisfaction. Detachment from sexual desire, low self-esteem. You know what? That's just crazy. I just can't imagine. Like, you're so worried about what other people are going to say that you can't be yourself in the most private setting. Like, what would people think? That's just crazy to me. I'm too embarrassed to discuss some of the things I like to do in bed. Fixation on fantasy, distrust of partner, negative judgments against sex from parents. Okay, so now I know why number 13 related to me. Negative judgment against sex from parents. That is literally exactly why. My parents never taught me about sex. Anything to do with sex, they were aggressive about. Like they would refuse to talk about. Literally, my sex education was: you can't have a boyfriend until you're 18, and you can't have sex until you're married, and that's it. When I was 25 and I was engaged to my boyfriend of 4 years, we rented a hotel, and my mom came up to me and she was like, "I know what you're doing." And I was like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "I know you're having sex." And I was like, "I'm 25. Like, what's the problem?" So the views on sex in my family, completely different. Like, they don't talk about it. They don't, yeah, I don't know. Right, Heidi? I don't know. For me, I wanted to be a sex therapist right off the bat. So, I am not shy about sex at all. Don't wink at me. All right. Personal history, I'm not saying my parents are bad people, it's all social conditioning, how they were raised. They're from a different era, different time. My dad is Protestant. My mom she's from super religious Catholic upbringing. So it makes sense. I'm just sharing some information because, it's good to relate it. Because this happens a lot to women in Hispanic cultures and religious cultures, and very common. We have sex more or less often than I'd like. Overdependence, low self-worth, lack of communication. So with that one, it's just like it is overdependence. Like, you can have sex by yourself. Like, you can literally have sex with yourself, and you're just not communicating to your partner that you want more. I really don't think about sex that often. Disappointment or anger towards partner, low self-image, judgment against sexual drive. This was made in 1997, so politically it's still pretty correct, but asexuality and sexual fluidity, like they were just starting, or they were there, but nobody was openly talking about it. Still a good book. Okay. Our sex isn't so great, but the rest of our marriage makes up for that. Inertia, lack of attention to sex, distractions from intimacy. That's usually why people cheat. If they're not satisfied in their marriage sexually, well, like all around, that's why people cheat. My phone's gonna die. What is the name? Sorry, I'm just thinking of a synonym. Inertia. Number 18, I have fantasies I don't share with my partner. Lack of communication, fear of sexual drive, abuse background, distrust. So he's on point because he's a psychologist. What do you want, Heidi? What? Do you want to sit on my lap? All right. Smells good. My mind wanders during this. What? My mind wanders during sex, inhibition, disappointment, or anger towards partner. Don't lick me in the mouth. What? Any burp in my face? How rude. Okay, sit. Sit. Relax. I don't know. Heidi, lay down. Oh my God. What do you want? What? Ow. All right, hold on. All right. Oh, pardon my disappointment. Don't lick me in the mouth. Distraction. Sexual drive. High stress. You are a butthole. I'm not such a great lover. Overdependence. Wounded self-image. Sexual trauma in the past. Judgments against sex. You're making this very difficult for me. Huh? Huh? This doesn't hurt her. It's like extra skin. Okay, I'm gonna drop you. Right? Okay, bye. These are very general interpretations and what is wide spectrum of possibilities. To feel that you aren't a great lover, for example, can be a sign of something mild, such as sexual inexperience, or something severe, such as clinical depression. Rather than reading any of these characterizations as a diagnosis or judgment, see if they show the way to hidden issues. The point is not to make you feel that there's something wrong with you, only to stir energies that need to move. And yes, the whole point of this book and everything I do is not to trigger you, but if it triggers you, that means you have to work on that. That's something that you have to work on, because I'm not the one making you angry. You're making yourself angry. So, but what do I know? In our culture, good sex is usually defined in terms of techniques and performance. Whose culture is he talking about? I guess he's talking about American culture. I'm assuming he's American with Indian background. We overlook that sex is a creative act. Oh, actually, no, he was born in India and then he came here. Well, we overlook that sex is a creative act which doesn't need to be critiqued or evaluated. Biologically, human sexuality is essential to the process that creates babies, but the same energy contributes to many things at levels of life that are not literally biological. Sex is creativity itself. Who has that view that sex is creativity? That's very rare. I'm sure if I say that to somebody, they're going to be like, what? And we have the capacity to create on every plane of existence. This guy's so smart. Love it. That's deep. That's Deepak. Get it? I have a sense of humor, I guess. Sex is creative when it produces a new feeling, insight, or experience. It is in this exercise, some of these possibilities are explored. Look at the following list of experiences. Put a check by any you have had at least one during sex. These are suggestive phrases to be interpreted as you wish. Your own perception of bliss, carefreeness, playfulness, and so on is all you need to go by. Oh boy, this. All right. So what was this? I have to put a check by any you have at least once during sex. Delighted laughter? No. Sense of timelessness? No. Ecstasy? No. Nope. Merging with partner? No. Floating sensation? No. Warmth or visible light flowing up the spine? No. Loss of ego? I don't have loss. I don't have. I mean, ego is always there, but like my ego is very, very small. It's like limited. Carefreeness? Yeah. Playfulness? I'm always playful. Non-attachment to your performance? I never think about that. Complete letting go? No. Expansion? No. Sense of hopefulness? No. Blessing? I'm always blessed. Bliss? Yes. Acute awareness of self or surroundings? Oh yeah, I'm in another place. Unbounded love? Yes, I love myself. Content, peace in the center of your heart? Yeah. So the reason why I have no for most of these is because I don't have a partner. And that is going to change very soon. I cannot predict the future, but it's not a bad thing. What is a good sticker to put here? I like this one. Life is a journey. You can't get everything that you want like right off the bat. So it's not like I pity myself in a like little tiny violin. Right timing, right partner, right mind. So that's really important. If you're not at the right level to be in a relationship, it's not going to last. Now look back over your answers, the experiences you have. Then he talks about if you answer yes or no, spiritual growth. Oh, go back over the list and mark experience you haven't had but think could happen next. These are your spiritual goals. Your desire for them is enough to bring them about. Manifestation. On your inner landscape, you're already working towards them. So yeah, like I said, like just because they haven't happened doesn't mean they're not ever going to happen. So I'm 100% sure, without a doubt, that this list, I will achieve all of that. No doubt in my mind. And some people think it's weird when you cry, like, or when you're laughing while you're having sex. It's really not to make your partner feel bad. It's actually the person enjoying themselves. I can't say anything else about that. Now go through the list the third time and mark the experiences you believe are out of reach or impossible for you. None of them. I don't believe anything is impossible. The phrase impossible has I'm possible in it. I don't know if a lot of people know that. So I just look at it like that. These could be interpreted as block of spirits. Since nothing is truly out of reach, the creative use of sexuality, naming what you see as impossible experiences, holds up a mirror to your current beliefs and the limits of love. How many times do I have to say this? The proof is in the pudding, okay? On the path to love, impossibilities are resolved by turning non-love into love. With spiritual growth comes new creative potential, which can take the form of sexual expression, leading to the realization that you're pure potential, able to fulfill any creative impulse. The worn out lover. And this is an example of somebody, so we'll go into this one. But before we do that, I want to bring something up. So, not in other countries, but here in America, there is a hypocrisy. Oh my God, I can't stop. Hypocrisy. Um, of female sexuality and sensuality. So usually cis white men, they're like, I love women. I love smart women. I love beautiful women. But they only love women when they're being controlled. They only love women when they're being diminished. They only love women who obey. And when women are sexually liberated, I'm using the term sexually liberated because I prefer that to sex worker, slutty, whore. I don't believe in those words because they were created by men. So once a woman is sexually liberated, all of a sudden it becomes a problem, and I know for a fact that I've had other women tell me the way I dress is unprofessional for somebody that has a business. I've had I'm sure that people are going to come up to me and message me, talk, say things like, you can't be talking about sex and doing all this sexual slutty hoary stuff and have a business. Like, no one's going to respect you. But for me, I don't need anyone to respect me because I respect myself, plain and simple. And also, I'm the fucking boss. So I can do whatever the fuck I want. And if people don't want to associate with me because, I'm sexually liberated and what I'm doing triggers them, then I don't need your business and I don't need you anywhere near what I do. I'm not going to cry about it, honestly. Because in the end, the person that loses is you. Because I offer free services for pretty much anything. And it's really just funny because, the men that are always like drooling over these like women who are models and, lingerie models and all these things, they say they love women, but they don't drool over women who are intelligent, who have boundaries, and who respect themselves. For example, Jesus, I hope he's okay. I think he is. I'm putting AOC out there because I absolutely love her and I will defend her no matter what. She's my girl. She's my queen. I worship her. So she's intelligent and she's no nonsense. And the same guys that are like, oh, I love women, blah, 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 they're the same people calling her a bitch, and she has to not be such a cunt, pretty much. Don't be a bitch. Don't be a cunt. You're too aggressive. Wear less makeup, put on more makeup. So in the end, I don't care. I just find it really bleh. That's all I can say is bleh. Because it's fine if a guy wants to say all these things, because he loses in the end. Because that woman who's strong, who has her own business, who is sexually liberated, is really good in bed. So who loses? Anyways, that was a little rant. The worn out lover. For a long time, ever since his early teens, Guy, and this is a name, Guy. Is that a name from another country too? I don't know. Had been a lover, a very active one. The singles bar scene had been his second home for a decade. Oh God, I don't know where that accent came from. I said decade. Decade. I don't know where they came from. And I meant to say decade. And he considered himself a born appreciator of women, unable to comprehend why other men seemed to resent or ignore them. To Guy, women were intoxicating creatures, and giving them pleasure was something he felt proud of. He never called himself a woman's boyfriend. He was always her lover. He took the sexual revolution for granted. He was open to almost any sexual experiment proposed by the women he dated, and he could quickly take his partner to a place where she wasn't embarrassed to express her fantasies. That sounds nice. When asked how he felt about his many conquests, and why are you calling it conquests? Guy said, I loved every one of them. Nothing makes me happier than a grateful woman. That's a good mindset. That's actually a great attitude to have. He was sincere when he claimed that none of his former flames resented him in any way, despite the fact that his liaisons, I'm just going to say it that way because it's French, with them lasted only a few nights, over a few months, 6 at most. Caroline was the first woman Guy had ever met whom he did not want to take to bed immediately. Despite the fact that he was strongly attracted to her, she was in her early 20s. Guy was about to turn 30. But she radiated the demure, innocent quality of a much younger girl. Enchanted, Guy thought of Caroline as a fawn with her large, trusting eyes and slight air of aloofness. For her part, Caroline seemed to adore Guy. He was only her third serious boyfriend. She definitely preferred this term over lover. Shaking off his reluctance, Guy soon entered an intimate relationship with Caroline. All went smoothly until one night when he found himself quite unexpectedly waking up in tears at 2 a.m. An uncontrollable emotion. Was it grief? Remorse swept over him. Mystified and shaken, Guy went back to sleep. That's interesting. The next time he took Caroline to bed, however, Guy found himself performing far below his usual high standards. Oh, I see what's happening. Okay. It just clicked in my brain. It hasn't been revealed here. His mind wandered, and for the first time, he felt that he might not be able to reach orgasm. This impossibility wasn't allowed to happen, but afterwards he felt fatigued and joyless. Caroline made no comment. She held Guy for a long time before he fell asleep. Their relationship deepened in many ways. Guy felt that he was going through the happiest time of his life. Caroline's light heart and innocent manner came as a revelation to him. He sometimes felt, by comparison, that he had been working very hard at life. This was undoubtedly true in his career. Guy worked long hours creating databases for prestigious commercial realtor. His goal was to be a millionaire in 5 years. Caroline was the first woman who had ever distracted him from this ambition. It's getting clearer and clearer. When Guy decided to propose to her, his ears burned in disbelief as Caroline asked for a little more time. Disbelief turned to shock when she hesitantly said that she wanted their relationship not to be intimate for a while. Pressed for reasons, Caroline hesitated even more, but finally she half whispered, I don't think you really like it. You just don't want to let me down. It was the most troubling and yet the most honest thing a woman has ever said to Guy. That night he stormed out in hurt pride, but he knew in his heart that he felt worn out. Certain things about sex had never occurred to him. For instance, he had never thought that more isn't necessarily better. For 10 years, he'd had sex nearly every day, and the need behind this obsession struck him now as something like an addiction. It had also never occurred to him that other voices could speak during the act of sex. He had obeyed the voice of desire so completely that now he found it difficult to hear expressions of sadness, pent-up anger, and grief. Reflecting on it, he realized they must always have been present. When Guy came back to Caroline, he loved her enough to be able to thank her for having proposed a waiting period. The two started to reconstruct a sexual relationship, beginning with simple touch. They could lie together and easily ask each other for a gentle touch on some parts of their body, directing where to touch next, how long to stay in one place. Rather than finding this erotic, Guy often discovered that some touches aroused anxiety. At times he felt like crying. Oh, he just needed like sexual healing, like intimate healing. Gradually, he realized that feeling safe with women had been rare for him. Yeah, exactly. That happens too often. You know, I just know this from being a woman and being motherly, and also because of my roommate. Not that it's sexual in any nature, but like I mentioned, Hispanic families and Asian families are very similar, and his mom was never affectionate towards him in any way. Like none of their family are affectionate, and I'm a very affectionate person. So like I hug him, I kiss him, I tell him I love him. You know, we cuddle together. You know, and that's something that I didn't have growing up either. So it's both sides for me and for him. So I understand where this guy's coming from. You know, it happens too often. Like it happens way too often, all the time. Everything just comes together in a circle. Anyways, he found that as the pent-up emotions began to surface, he wanted to tell Caroline about incidents from his past that he had never shared with a woman. In fact, talking to women had never been his strong suit. He began to make links between his need to perform in bed and his demanding, critical mother. What did I say? In time, it became clear to him that at some level he felt all women were demanding, and by being a skillful lover, he could diffuse and advance their contempt for him as inadequate. Oh. Guy was fortunate that so much love remained in him. Many men could have taken a decade. I almost said it again in French, or whatever language that I said it in. Decade. To achieve the insight he was gaining in a few months. Caroline did not set herself up as a teacher or therapist. She followed Guy in his self-discovery, allowing him to withdraw when he needed to. It became clear to him that she had given herself permission to withdraw as well. To him, having sex had always been a sign of intimacy. Again, sex is not always about intimacy. There's different forms of intimacy. For Caroline, intimacy emerged slowly, and agreeing to have sex with him had been only a first step. Even though Caroline's really young, she's really emotionally intelligent. Some hard times followed for Guy. There were nights when he felt aggressive or angry during sex, which led to deep bouts of guilt. His image of himself as the lover frayed as he came to feel the underlying rage he had suppressed, compelling him to act out sexually what he idealized as inner personality. He wasn't the sensitive, generous, caring lover he had fashioned himself into, but a complex and sometimes contradictory bundles of feelings and drives. In time, this was good enough since it was real. Caroline realized that it was important to support Guy in his spiritual progress. As it turned out, she was quite serious about her own spiritual life, so she was able to view this transition as more than psychological. She believed that all the changes in the relationship were serving to bring Guy and her into unity. She is smart. To help chart their progress, she made a list of experiences she wanted to have with Guy, noticing each one and discussing it with him as each occurred. That's actually really smart. I might steal that. Do I have any stickies? Oh man, he has a list of books. Okay. I didn't know he wrote so much. I'm going to read all of them. I will do it. I will do it.
Oh.
Bet. All right, I'm putting this little emoji sticker. It's cute. So, ow, fudge. I want to feel needed for who I am. These are the list of experiences she wanted to have with him. I want to feel vulnerable. I want to feel you won't ever hurt me. That's kind of, you can discuss that in a deeper level, but yeah, most people don't want to get hurt by their lover. I want to feel your strength. I want to feel I can tell you what I most desire. I want to feel open. I want to feel gentle wildness. I like that. I want to feel one with you. I want to feel nothing was ever better than this. Oh, that's cute too. Love is just so beautiful. I want to feel lightness bubbling in my heart. Oh, that's cute. I want to feel profound. I want to feel at one. She knows what she wants. This was more than a wish list. It sent a message of desire to the universe that she expected to be fulfilled as events unfolded. Manifestation. Caroline encouraged Guy to make his own list. They didn't bring these lists to bed to think about them while in bed. The point was to articulate clearly where they wanted their path together to lead. Beautiful. Marriage came a year later, by which time Guy had changed many of his most basic attitudes towards sex. He no longer performed it without love, and he felt able to say when his emotions made love difficult. He thought not of sexual excitement, but of being comfortable. He found that the most strongest turn-ons were silent, peaceful surroundings, tender expressions, deep looks of desire, sparkling eyes, tentative touches, and modesty. Oh. I love this book. It's beautiful. There were moments when he forgot about sex, lost in the sheer freedom and openness of his own being, and these were the most sexual moments of all. For someone who has spent his growing up years drowned in sexual experience, Guy was on his way to recovering the one thing experience cannot bring, the freedom of innocence. So beautiful. And I'm going to leave it at that because, there is just so much in this book. I will continue this as I see fit. I may read this on my own or read some chapters to you. But I hope that last part makes you understand what love is really about. Like, if your mind isn't blown by this last statement, you have a disconnect. Because you just, like, my mind is blown. Well, I already knew all this information, but sometimes to spiritually awaken, you just need a slap in the face, literally or spiritually. or metaphysically, I don't know, but sometimes people just need to be slapped. I'm not saying this in a violent manner, but literally sometimes it just, you just. And like I mentioned before, spiritually, I've been slapped in the face with information. You can't ignore it, just like right in your face, and then either you pay attention to it or it just happens again. So I hope that really opened your eyes. Beautiful. I can't wait. This is somebody's like shopping list from 1997, I think. I'm keeping it as a bookmark. Yeah, I hope that this has helped you. And let's see what other books before we end this, because he just has, maybe this book doesn't resonate with you. You're not in the right place to believe in pure love. Some people are very tarnished. Let me say tarnished. I don't want to say tainted because it's not the right word. They're very jaded about love. And I was there once or twice. But in the end, you realize that love is beautiful and love can heal any wound. Love can change anything, and love can make miracles. So let's see what he has. Books by Deepak Chopra, Creating Health, Return of Rishi, Quantum Healing. That's interesting. I think I'm going to get Quantum Healing. I like that. Unconditional Life, Ageless Body, Ageless, oh my God. Ageless Body, Timeless Mind, Journey into Healing. That's a good book that somebody should read if they've been sexually abused in any form. Creating Affluence, Perfect Weight. Curious about that. Perfect weight. What does he mean? That's a double meaning. Actually, let's look it up before we keep going to the rest of it. Sorry. Anyways, let's see. What is it? Perfect weight. Oh my God, we have so much in common. Okay, so perfect weight. I have mentioned this before about, I forgot what video I mentioned it about. Basically, you cannot lose weight like everyone loses weight. You have to tailor it to your genetics. And he basically talks about that. So I'm going to read it. Essentially, I'll use veganism as an example. Yes, veganism is a positive movement, but not everyone can be vegan. I had a friend who was vegan for, I want to say 4 years. And he came back and he was like, I will never be vegan again. My body has been destroyed. Like, I feel sick. Like, I did not feel healthy. So veganism doesn't work for everyone. Vegetarianism is a little bit more safe. But for me, I'll probably most likely never be able to be 100% vegan because of my genetics. I have anemia and I have to eat red meat because I will get sick. So you have to tailor your diet to your genetics. And some people are going to be like, that doesn't make sense. It makes sense because your DNA holds information. So people from, the mountains have to eat differently than people that are on plains. It's just kind of like common sense. I don't want to say common sense, but like it's just you got to think about it. You can't. No one fits in a box. No one fits in a box. Like it's impossible. And I know people are going to have that issue because I already got into little arguments with somebody who was saying that everyone should go vegan because it's easy, but the reality is not easy. And also it's a personal choice. Like if the person does not want to be vegan, that's their personal choice. But what do I know? I don't know anything. I really don't know anything. You just have to be very careful. Very careful. My sister and I were vegetarian for 2 years. And I'm essentially a vegetarian now. I do eat some meat though. Because for me, oh my God, my eyes twitching. Sometimes I think it's because I'm bipolar. My body uses so much protein and fuel that vegetables don't sustain the level of energy that I need. So sometimes I just need some protein, like chicken. I try to stay away from pork because it's been making me sick. But yeah. And then people are going to say things like, but you love animals, but you're killing animals. I'm aware that this is an issue, and I'm actively working to change it. And there are other options too if you still eat meat. It's called halal, which is a sheik. I think it's a sheik thing, where they kill the animals in a spiritual way, in a religious way, and a respectful way. So there are options. And also, don't tell me what to do. Like, shut the fuck up. Anyways, restful sleep, that is always important. I'm sure that has spiritual stuff in it. The 7 spiritual laws of success. Cool. The return of Merlin. That's interesting. Boundless energy. I have that already. I don't need that. Perfect digestion. Okay, that's another one that people might want to read. I might want to read it too. I don't think I really need to read it because I don't think I need to read that one much. The Way of the Wizard, that sounds fun. Overcoming Addictions. Raid on the Inarticulate. Let me look that one up. What are you doing, Lulu? I find that interesting. It's a poem book, so I'm most likely going to get it. Because I love poetry. The 7 spiritual laws for parents. That's actually something also that I enjoy to learn. Different parenting skills. The love poem of Rumi. I love Rumi. Translated by Deepak Chopra, which is good because he knows Hindu and Sanskrit. So his meanings will be more close to what the actual word is. And so I don't want people to take offense with the veganism and the vegetarian thing. I'm totally compassionate about animals. Obviously, I have animals. I've had animals all my life. but as I mentioned, you cannot eat the same things and have the same nutrition, have the same reaction, because everyone's body is different. Hooligans. So yeah, you have to cater what you eat, cater the way you are trying to lose weight to your body, because for a very long time I was part of a gym and I literally could not lose weight, like at all. Like just going to the gym, working out, like that did not work for me. So it works for other people. It did not work for me. And that's part of my genetics. Colombian women are thicker. We're supposed to have extra weight, around the hips, around the waist, around the thigh. Like it's just our anatomy. So, yeah. Well, that was fun. I'm going to go walk my dog. And tomorrow's Saturday, so I'm not. Maybe I'll post a video. But yeah, thanks for watching. I hope you had a mindgasm. Like I hope your mind exploded. Those are the best.